To hear this and many more audiobooks in a podcast feed, please visit the first link in the description below. To purchase individual audiobooks, please visit the second link in the description below. Thank you for your support. China and the CPC. The challenges we face and how we respond. Party Building Books Publishing House, Foreign Languages Press, First Edition, 2015. Understanding the CPC, An Introduction, Robert Lawrence Kuhn. Footnote: Robert Lawrence Kuhn is an international corporate strategist and political economics commentator. He spoke at the book launch of Xi Jinping, The Governance of China. He is the author of How China's Leaders Think and a biography of former Chinese President Jiang Zemin. His CCTV news show, executive produced by Adam Zhu, is Closer to China with R.L. Kuhn. End of footnote. Understanding the CPC. This unprecedented series of books published by the organization department of the CPC Central Committee is a milestone. It marks the CPC's dual commitment to domestic renewal and international outreach, a confluence that is not coincidental. Foreigners generally do not understand the Communist Party of China, the CPC, the party, particularly its historic transformation from a revolutionary party seeking power to a ruling party exercising power. CPC and the party are used interchangeably. China is at a multi-dimensional crossroads. Outcomes will affect the entire world, and the only way to grasp China's current conditions realistically and to anticipate China's future insightfully is to understand what the CPC is and how it works. The CPC has ruled China since 1949. It has more than 85 million members. Why then is the party such a mystery? Perhaps remembrances of the collapsed Soviet Communist Party, hidden and sclerotic, or of China during the Cultural Revolution, fanatical and chaotic, both of which cloud comprehension of the contemporary CPC. Whatever the reasons, the veil of mystery should be lifted. These books offer the CPC explaining the CPC. These are not dispassionate academic critiques, but real-life expositions of how the CPC interprets itself, presenting reflexively what the CPC wants the world to know. Understanding the CPC is the story of the party told by the party. This is how the party thinks. President Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee, asserts that for China to achieve its national goals of building a moderately prosperous society by 2020 and a fully modernized nation by 2050, the Chinese dream, the party must rule the party and the country properly, with strict discipline, dedication, and competence. The supreme criterion for all party conducts, Xi says, is that it serves the interests of the great majority of the people. Party effectiveness, he continues, should ultimately be measured by the real benefits the people have reaped, by the improvement in their lives and by how well their rights and interests are protected. President Xi's four comprehensives, his overarching political theory, elevates strictly governing the party to the highest rank, along with building a moderately prosperous society, deepening reform, and governing according to law. But each of the four comprehensives has its own nature. Moderately prosperous society is a goal. Deepening reform is a means. Governing according to law is a principle. And strictly governing the party is an action or state of affairs. Moreover, each has been a major policy in itself, supported by previous leaders for years. So what has changed? What's the structural innovation? What's Xi's purpose for unifying them now? As I see it, the four comprehensives emerge as Xi's prevailing political philosophy of governance via two linguistic devices and two pragmatic purposes. The linguistic devices are 1. Combining the four policies into a single idea, and 2. Using the same word comprehensive as a descriptor of each. Combining them makes the point that these four are fundamental, the basic drivers, and that if achieved, all else to realize the Chinese dream would follow. Comprehensive signals two notions. 1. Each policy is facing critical challenges in the new era, such that each must be expanded beyond its prior formulation. And 2. Xi is making a very public commitment to executing each policy, such that there is now no turning back. The pragmatic purposes are 1. A realistic summary of experiences and appraisal of current conditions, and 2. A priority to act and implement in order to achieve the national goals. The four comprehensives highlight the expanding complexity of what it will take to realize the Chinese dream and the clarifying need for a call to action to make it happen. Strictly governing the party, the fourth comprehensive, has become Xi's transformative hallmark, the power to energize and effect the other three comprehensives, whose implementations have become more difficult. And it is this enhancement and elevation of the party's ruling role and how it must be strictly governed to accomplish its mission that marks a crucial advance. Here then is the nexus between the four comprehensives and understanding the CPC. Although previous leaders have stressed party discipline, because of different circumstances and priorities, none has done so like Xi. And we see such heightened awareness and commitment reflected sharply in these books. Just as a blacksmith needs a hard hammer, an analogy goes, the party needs strong members. Hence, the far-reaching anti-corruption campaign, bagging tigers and swatting flies, and quashing the extravagances of officials. Notwithstanding China's massive and sudden generation of wealth, the goal is to create a party system where officials have three attitudes toward corruption: don't want, don't do, and don't dare. Speaking to a high-level political delegation of U.S. Democrats and Republicans, Wang Qishan, member of the Politburo Standing Committee and Secretary of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, the party's top anti-corruption organ, declared that one cannot understand China without understanding the CPC. The essential characteristic of socialism with Chinese characteristics, he said, is the leadership of the CPC. And if one does not understand the CPC, one cannot deal effectively with China. Wang vowed to, quote, awaken the awareness of discipline and rules among party members, end quote, and pledged to enhance institutional innovation. Building a moderately prosperous society would be impossible, Wang said, without CPC rule. For readers of Understanding the CPC, here's an 8-dimensional framework for assessing and analyzing the CPC. 1. Ideology and its developments. 2. History and its vicissitudes. 3. Leadership and elite politics. 4. Structure and organization. 5. Personnel selection and training. 6. Strict discipline, corruption, and anti-corruption campaigns. 7. Contemporary challenges. 8. Future prospects. For example, this framework may help classify and clarify diverse ideas throughout these books. 3 fundamental questions are addressed. First, why has China opted for one-party rule? By what right does the CPC hold perpetual rule? Second, what is it about party structure, organization, and governance that enables the CPC to endure as the ruling party? How has the CPC brought about what many call China's developmental miracle? Third, what challenges does the party face in the future amidst increasing domestic complexity and churning international volatility? With China, the world's second largest economy and involved with every matter of global importance, it is vital to demystify the CPC. To this end, Adam Zhu, my longtime business partner, and I are supporting the publication of Understanding the CPC by producing TV shows on the CPC, interviewing party officials and the authors of these books for our weekly CCTV news show, Closer to China, telling the true, variegated story of China through candid discussions with China's thought leaders and decision makers. Closer to China asks questions that the world wants to ask about China, often about the CPC and its philosophies and policies. Here are some CPC-related questions. How did the CPC transform the country so dramatically, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty? What is it about CPC leadership that enabled China to develop so rapidly? How does the CPC, as the ruling party, claim legitimacy? What are the criteria, and how are they tested? How is the party organized and structured? What are the main organs of the party? How does the party coordinate its 3 hierarchical levels: central, national, local, provincial, and grassroots? How does the party connect to the masses? What is the nature of party construction? A complex amalgam of attitudes and actions. How to build party institutions that are self-correcting and can endure. Why is the Central Party School called the CPC's secret of success? What is its role? How does it operate? How does it educate and train party officials? What research does it conduct? How does the CPC actually govern? What does democratic centralism mean? What is the process by which the CPC leads the National People's Congress, the state council, government, and the judiciary, the Supreme Court? How does the CPC interact with the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, and the other 8 democratic parties? What is the party's self-attributed advanced nature? How does the party mobilize productive forces and encourage advanced culture? What does the party consider its greatest challenges, dangers, or tests? System, reform, market economy, external factors? What is the nature of inter-party resistance to reform? What are the so-called interest groups that oppose reform? Why must the party be rejuvenated, and how is the party being rejuvenated? What is intra-party democracy? How to establish credible checks and balances in a one-party system? How to promote transparency? How to engage ordinary citizens in the process of governance? How is President Xi's anti-corruption campaign working to enforce strict discipline in the party? What are the root causes of corruption in the CPC, and how are they being rooted out? What are systemic mechanisms that can control corruption? What can be learned from the CPC's historic development and transformation, from the dizzying swings of successes and failures? How has the CPC handled its errors, particularly the ruinous, decade-long cultural revolution? Why was the CPC successful and the Soviet Communist Party was not? What are the enduring ideals of the CPC? What are its visions for the future? For the world to understand the CPC, the heart of the matter is to explain why and how the CPC avers that its one-party system, under current national conditions and recognizing diverse risk factors, is optimum for China. There are 2 questions here. The first assesses the effectiveness of China's one-party system in an absolute sense of benefits versus costs, analyzing the trade-offs, and the second evaluates China's one-party system in a relative sense by comparing it, hypothetically, to how a multi-party system might work in China. All systems of governance have trade-offs. The benefits of a one-party system include the capacity to implement critical policies rapidly, such as the stimulus package during the financial crisis of 2008 that insulated China from the worst of the recession. A one-party system can also assure that strategies that require long-term commitment have long-term commitment, e.g., China's Western development. The cost or danger of a one-party system is that society is much more dependent on the quality of its leaders and much more vulnerable to their vicissitudes and excesses. While China's one-party system has had great success during the period of reform in decades prior, when leftist ideology was enforced with oppressive zealotry, waves of political mass movements impoverished and dispirited the people. China's one party today, the CPC, is far more enlightened. It is a learning-minded party that encourages its members to expand their knowledge in all fields, including science, economics, and culture. By stressing its learning-minded ethos, the CPC exemplifies a contemporary ruling party. There are trade-offs, too, in kinds of public restrictions, particularly in the media. Here, in essence, is the flow of the argument to benefit the Chinese people. Because improving living standards depends on development, development on stability, stability on one-party rule, and one-party rule on certain media regulations, then improving living standards depends on certain media regulations. Although some foreigners believe that China would be more stable with a multi-party system, such a forecast seems wishful thinking, disconnected from Chinese realities. If one looks at almost every aspect of real life, Chinese people have more personal freedom today than at any other time in their long history, almost the equivalent of their peers in the West. Although I marvel at China's astounding economic success, I still say that economic success is the contemporary CPC's second most important accomplishment. The first is opening up Chinese people's spirits, the emancipation of the mind, enabling increasingly greater freedoms in personal and social lives. Moreover, China's entire vast population is finally free from widespread famine, pestilence, homelessness, illiteracy, political mass movements, and many of the social scourges of other eras. Furthermore, the Chinese government has developed innovative ways to involve citizens in the process of governance, such as using the internet to solicit feedback, attending to social media, and public polling to assess views, opinions, and attitudes. While I argue that China today is best served by its one-party system, I stress that for the CPC to retain its ruling status, it has a higher obligation to enhance standards of living and personal well-being, which includes increasing democracy, transparency in governance, public oversight of government, various freedoms, rule of law, and human rights. President Xi states that the CPC, as the ruling party, should be governed by rules and procedures that are standardized and reasonably open to public scrutiny. I am impressed by the strong meritocracy of the CPC, whose leaders are highly intelligent and well-educated, have wide-ranging experiences, and focus on their operational numbers and statistics. CPC officials are generally some of the most capable in the world. Only if the CPC maintains its high standards of leadership and prevents arbitrary and autocratic rule from reasserting itself, particularly on the local level, will the CPC continue to lead China successfully. The CPC claims a historic mission, as exemplified in these books. In 1,000 years, when the long annals of political systems are compiled, China today may well be a case study of what happens when a country with a one-party political system seeks to construct a prosperous, democratic society. I applaud the CPC for taking the initiative to publish Understanding the CPC. If the world does not understand the CPC, it is the CPC's responsibility to reach out to the world. That's what this series of books is all about. A clear, comprehensive description of the CPC by the CPC, its philosophies and policies, organization and governance, vision and challenges. Foreigners can disagree with the CPC, argue with the CPC, but all who need to know China and all who think they know China must understand the CPC.